Sure. So my name's Chris Oakley, and I look after the North American operation for Nettitude. So ultimately, I'm responsible for all of the technical things that happen out of this office. So that includes penetration testing, incident response, GRC type services, managed services, and that sort of thing. I very first got involved with CREST as a candidate. So probably 10 years ago at this point, I started to take CREST exams, and it was maybe a couple of cycles of CCT and CSAM type exams worth that I took as a candidate before I then got involved with CREST as an assessor. And I've been an assessor for probably about 5 years at this point. Yeah, so as a CREST examiner, our role is to create the content for the exams, whether that's theoretical content or practical content. Most exams have both. We also invigilate the exams, so where those exams happen in person, we'll make sure that everything's going smoothly, that the candidates are comfortable with their environment, and then subsequently we'll mark the exams as well, and get the results sent out to those candidates. CREST certifications are a gold standard in my opinion. There's all sorts of exams and certifications that you can take as a cybersecurity professional. And CREST is right up there with the best of them. So what CREST brings is an assurance to the clients that you're working with as a penetration tester or any of the other areas that CREST assesses against, that you're a professional, you've got the right level of experience, you've got the right level of expertise and skill, and that you're ultimately going to do a good job. And you're going to do so in a manner that is not going to harm the target environment, particularly for things like penetration testing. That's especially important. So there's a number of different career paths that you can take with CREST. At the beginning, they started off as an organization that focused mostly on offensive security, so penetration testing and the like. But since then, they've really branched out into other domains, so threat intelligence and incident response, and all sorts of other career paths exist within the CREST ecosystem now. So if you're somebody that wants to go and take a path that's not penetration testing, there's absolutely options to do that. And people have very much taken those different paths. If you're looking to take your first exam, you're probably at the practitioner level or the registered level. So those are exams that are designed for individuals that have been working in a given domain for usually between, I don't know, 1, 2, and 3 years, that sort of ballpark. And then from there, you're able to elevate usually the 5-year mark and beyond into the certified level exams. And the certified level exams are where there's really a bit of specialism that comes into play. So, for example, with the CCT, you have the CCT Inf and the CCT App. So you will be focusing on either infrastructure penetration testing skills or application penetration testing skills. Within the threat intelligence arena, you will have gone on from your threat intelligence practitioner level to threat intelligence managerial type level, and so on. So there's all sorts of different career paths that you can take, and it really comes down to the individual's career choices and preferences. The domain of cybersecurity as a whole is so broad now that no individual person can be an expert in all elements of it. And so you pick the elements that you want to sort of carve out for yourself. Entering the industry is something that we field a lot of questions about. I field questions with my CREST hat on and with my Nettitude hat on as well. The advice I typically give is to seek out mentors. It's really useful if you can seek either an individual or a community of people that are willing to work with you to help elevate your skills and your experience. And that doesn't necessarily need to be someone that you work with. And indeed, if you don't have a role in cybersecurity yet, it won't be someone that you work with. But at the same time, have an awareness that you need to be able to be self-sufficient, be motivated. People aren't likely to just give up their time and spoon feed everything to you. What you need to do is demonstrate that you've done your research, you've started to play around in maybe a lab environment with whatever domain you're interested in, and show willing. And there's an abundance of information out there at the moment. So when I started working in information security, maybe there were a couple of books starting to be published, maybe a couple of conferences, yes, certainly a few conferences, but that was really it. These days you've got courses in person and online that you can take for just about every subject matter you can imagine. You've got many conferences, and often those come with training attached. You've got universities that offer degrees in cybersecurity. You've got blogs. You've got many books. You've got, YouTube is full of free videos, but there's paid resources as well. There's SecurityTube. You name it. There's more information than any person could consume in a single lifetime now. And so it's easy to become overwhelmed with all of that information. And I would recommend that individuals pick or try to pick a path and stick to it early on. There's nothing to say that you have to stick to that forever, but try not to boil the ocean, and then pick a few credible resources and just go for it. And if you're asking sensible questions along the way, you're likely to be getting sensible answers. And try and network as well. I think networking and the power of knowing the right people is often underestimated. Many people that I know who have landed jobs in cybersecurity landed those jobs because they went out to the local conferences, for example, B-Sides, and that's probably a good example, given that it runs globally. And they've met the right people, and through conversation, through networking, they've been able to land a role. And all you need is that first entry-level role. Within a year or two, you probably won't struggle to find your subsequent roles, whether that's within the same organization or a different organization. There's a huge demand for cybersecurity services at the moment, and there are, frankly, not enough people, not enough individuals to fill those open positions. So if you are motivated, if you've got the right focus, the right attitude, it might be a little bit difficult early on, but you'll find a little bit of a snowball effect. The more you succeed, the easier the next piece of success becomes. Absolutely. So staying up to date is really important. There are so many things happening on a daily basis, and if you ignore the latest and greatest, it won't be very long before your hard-won skills, knowledge, and expertise is suddenly out of date. So that's one of the challenges of working in this industry, especially, is just the fast-moving pace of it all. I can't say that there's a definitive list of the quote-unquote right places to be looking for your news, but I can certainly share what I find useful. So first and foremost, I find Twitter to be quite a useful source of news and insights. It will take a little while for you to curate the right list of people to follow, but once you do that, you'll find that you start to live on the cutting edge. You'll find that there are pieces of news that you hear before they hit the mainstream news and even the industry news. You'll find what people are researching and working on. You'll get insights into the latest challenges and how they're being resolved. So Twitter for sure is one good way to stay up to date. As with any social media, treat it with respect. Don't live your life on it. Don't treat it as the be all and end all, and maybe avoid trying to spend hours every day building imaginary internet points. It doesn't really matter how many followers you've got. That's just noise. Try and focus on the content. Beyond things like Twitter, I like to consume my content in video formats. So I'm quite a visual learner. So there are platforms such as Pluralsight, which is a paid platform, but I think very worth it. It's, around $30 per month. There are free platforms as well. So for example, SecurityTube offers an array of courses. Some of them are free, some of them are paid, but even the paid ones are reasonably priced in my opinion. I like to use industry news as well. So for example, the Register and InfoSec Magazine, places like that, are good to get a view from maybe a higher level. You're probably not going to get super technical news from there, but it's a good jumping off point. And again, it comes back to networking as well. Knowing the right people, keeping your ear to the ground and having sensible conversations with those in the know on a regular basis is really going to help as well. Sure. So I've got extensive experience working in Europe and North America, in particular the UK and the USA. And there are absolutely similarities and there are absolutely differences between those two geographies. The UK is a smaller market. I guess that goes without saying. It's a smaller economy. It's physically got fewer people in the country. And what that has led to over time is a sort of coalescence of the industry. So where I started, there were many boutique organizations, and that was over in the UK. There are still a number of boutique organizations for sure, but there's been a lot of mergers and acquisitions along the way. And so now if I look at the UK industry, And when I say the industry, I'm really focusing on organizations that provide information security services. There has certainly become less fragmentation. So previously we would have had, many organizations that might be between, 1 and 15 people working there. Now we're looking at maybe a handful of much larger and arguably more mature organizations. So it's not uncommon now to find service providers that are, hundreds of people or bigger in the UK versus the fragmentation that we saw previously. In the US, I think we've still very much got a lot of fragmentation. So there are not necessarily the obvious 5 or 6 big organizations that you could point to and say, if I was thinking about cybersecurity services, these are the organizations that I would point to. For sure, there are some of those organizations, but they don't necessarily take the entire industry or at least most of it. There's a large number of boutiques around, and I think that's a really good thing. I think boutiques absolutely have a place in the industry. They provide a different set of challenges and a different sort of career path for individuals working within cybersecurity. You've got to bear in mind that North America is a very large place, and perhaps larger than most Europeans really appreciate. Any given state in the US, for example, is probably looking at the same economy size, or in many cases much larger than the UK. Places like California in particular, if that was a country rather than a state, it'd be immediately in the top 10 GDPs in the world. And so given the fact that that also has, as a state, Silicon Valley and a lot of the latest IT development going on, it's unsurprising that it's just a very different industry to what you might find over in Europe. I think in some respects, the US is, as an industry, less mature. And I want to be careful in my wording there. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I mean organizations, entities like CREST are only just coming to the forefront over here. And I think CREST has done a really good job of ensuring a certain minimum standard is met certainly within the UK, but also wider afield. CREST operate globally. The US hasn't necessarily had that single entity acting as a sort of quasi-regulator. So there's nothing to stop me, for example, saying tomorrow, as somebody that's got no experience, I'm setting up shop as a pen test organization or as a threat intelligence or a GRC house. And so equally, there's nothing to stop me from charging what I want. And it's very difficult for clients who are looking for these sorts of services to differentiate between organizations that are appropriately skilled and experienced versus organizations that are perhaps less so. Is the buying maturity of the North American market as mature? Well, on the whole, probably not. I think in the European market, it's very common now to be asked questions, just basic questions around liability, insurance, safety. How are you going to conduct these services in a way that's going to, minimize the risk to our organization? Whereas in the North American market, it's a little less like that and a little more focused on, what's the day rate and tell me why these services are valuable. And maybe the sorts of conversations I was having 10 years ago back in Europe. So they are different. In many respects, they're the same, though. We're a global community. The industry is made up of people that travel all over the world, or certainly did up until recently. We have, organizations that are global in nature. We have global conferences. People travel, generally speaking, internationally to go to these conferences. That global community ensures some level of consistency between the continents. So there are some things that are the same. There are some things that are different. Certainly, both sides present their own unique challenges. And I quite enjoy working here in the States. I think it's a huge opportunity for any organization. I think it's great that CREST are now involved with North America. And I look forward to what the future brings for Europe, America, and beyond, over into the Asian type territories as well.